All right, guys, welcome back again to the channel. So, two friendlies have now been confirmed for the Super Eagles of Nigeria in the month of November. That's just a few weeks before the African Cup of Nations kick starts in December. So, technically, these games will be test games or test matches for the team, so that they will use it to really know how prepared that they are going into the Nations Cup, which is, of course, like very important. It's very important that we have to be ready for the Nations Cup, and obviously we need to win this Nations Cup, after the disappointment from the last one. But again, the latest country to be added into the friendly list for November is Colombia. Of course, you remember the previous one was Venezuela. We talked about it a few weeks ago. So in the month of November, this Bibles will be traveling to USA, to play this friendly. And the Venezuelan game, of course, was already scheduled in the USA. The venue is USA, so they will use that opportunity, and then also play Colombia in the same USA. So Venezuela game comes up on the 15th November, and then on the 19th, we'll have the game against Colombia. So this is very important. I think for me, I'm really happy with the Colombian match, because I think Colombia is a top footballing country that's going to provide some really good stern test for the Super Eagles, for them to really assess how prepared that they are, going into the African Cup of Nations. But let's move forward, guys, and talk about a certain, 17-year-old Nigerian eligible player, the person of Rio Ngumoha, a Liverpool striker who obviously has been turning every eye, since he got his debut for Liverpool. He's played in almost all the top competition despite his age. He's made his debut in the Champions League, played in the EPL, played in the FA Cup, and then now Carabao Cup. So Liverpool are deciding to give this man a new contract, a new professional contract. As a matter of fact, this is his first professional contract that he's signing at 17 years old. The duration of the contract was not exactly released to the public, but from what it's looked like, it's going to be a long contract. Liverpool are trying to tie this young man down to the club and prevent, other clubs from coming in and trying to um, swoop him or steal him away. Uh, why I'm talking about this guy is obviously because he still has the possibility of representing Nigeria. Of course, I know a lot of you will say, "Don't go there, don't even go there." This is a lost cause, because obviously he plays. He grew up in England, and everything that he knows, his world revolves around the UK. So obviously, it's almost impossible that he's going to want to favor coming to play for Nigeria because of his experiences, but it's still something that can happen. We'll talk about this again. We've seen players who were born in UK, uh, play their eighth grade football in the UK, and at the end of the day, they ended up switching to the Super Eagles of Nigeria. Talk about the likes of Alex Iwobi, talk about Chus Ekong. These guys were born in the UK. Sorry, I think Akon was born in the Netherlands, but he spent a lot of his formative years, as a youngster in the UK. Iwobi as well, born in the UK. Kevin Bassi as well has that upbringing from Italy and UK. So we have all of these players who had, growing ups to do in abroad, and at the end of the day, they decided to play for us. So this man is a potential. Of course, I am sure NFF, and their scouting team are definitely looking at, this man and trying to see how they can make it a reality. But let's move on and talk about something that's kind of related. And of course, this one is a conversation started by Samson Siasia. I told you guys he's been talking, here and there recently. And one of the things that he has said again is that these foreign players that decide to come play for the Super Eagles, or these foreign players that we see that are currently playing, that the only reason why they even thought about it, or the reason why they came to play for us, is because the foreign countries rejected them. That if the foreign country didn't reject them, or if they chose them, or decided to call them up into their squad, there is no way on earth that these players would turn that down and decide to come play for the Super Eagles. This is what Samson Siasia has said recently. Talk about the likes of Iwobi, Kevin Bassi, talk about Bright Osei Samuel. Virtually half of our squad, are mostly footballers who were born outside of the country but had to be called back, to represent. So Siasa is saying that nearly all of these players, or even all of them, will not have decided to play for Nigeria if they had a chance with these countries of their choice or this country of their childhood. This is what he's saying. I was actually discussing with his a fellow legend of the team, Emmanuel Babayaro, who both of them sat down and have that conversation. So in Siasia's own words, he said the crop of players we had during that era in 1990 to 1998 were great players that left the shores of Nigeria, went to Europe and came back. But now that we are bringing in players from Europe to come and play for Nigeria, two different things entirely. Kids that were born in Europe or went at an early age doing well for their clubs are back to play for the national team. If they had a chance to play for a European country, great players, they won't come back. We struggle and made it to Europe, but they were born there. So that is what Siasia has said. And frankly, I cannot really see any reason to disagree with Siasia's opinion on this because it makes a lot of sense. Why these players would not come back. Even if you want to relate it to yourself as a person, because sometimes I see a couple of uh, fans, Nigerian fans, who are angry with some players if they decide they don't want to play for the country. Some are like, go to hell. Some are like, we don't even need you. That kind of a thing. Some get angry if players reject the country, but I think that shouldn't be the case because sometimes you have to put yourself in the shoes of these players and just imagine living their life. For example, most of these players, their parents left the country because they were looking for greener pastures. They suffered in the country. They had to leave because they wanted to survive. They wanted a better future for their kids. And then, you know, 15 years later or 20 years later, their kids grew up playing football and, they are playing really well, as a professional footballer. And then they come into the limelight and the country, that's Nigeria, NFF, now have the information that okay, this is a Nigerian descent to, they'll now come for these players. How would you think it would be easy for these players to come back and play for a country that their parents, left, had to leave 15, 20 years ago because they were looking for greener pasture, because the country let them down, and things like that. So it's very understandable if some of these players don't play for us. I don't take it personal, because we have a lot of stories. We have a lot of players who, if they tell you their stories and their experiences and what their parents went through, just to make sure that they make it, playing football, you would be very emotional and you understand some of their decisions. For example, one of the latest that the NFF actually tried to covet is the guy that Chelsea recently bought, who goes by the name Emmanuel Mega. Emega, that guy is a very prolific goal scorer. Despite his age, just being 22 years of age, but he's actually Nigerian descent, but also has the opportunity to represent, I think, the Netherlands. But while NFF were trying to get him to, come back home, the man, told the NFF that, I'm sorry, I cannot come to play for the Super Eagles because I want to play for the Netherlands. That's where I grew up. That's where I had, my formative years. That's where I had my upbringing, and most importantly, I want to make my mother proud, because my mom doesn't even want me to play for Nigeria because to start with, she left the country. She left the country, she left the country, to make sure that I have a bright future. And why should I go back to play for the country that failed my family, that failed my mom? So these are some of the experiences that some of these players have. um, at the end of the day, you cannot blame anybody. It's completely up to them. If they decide to play, good. If they don't decide to play, no hard feelings. You move on, and then we wish you all the best. That's what it is. Of course, you're almost getting into the weekends where we'll see, a couple of interesting games being played across Europe, EPL, La Liga, French Liga, Bundesliga, and so on and so forth. So we'll be looking forward to seeing a couple of our Nigerian stars come back again into action. We have a couple of games. Crystal Palace have a very difficult game against Liverpool. Cristiano Zucchi, is he going to get his first start for Crystal Palace? It still remains to be seen. And then we'll have also Nottingham Forest who will be playing against Sunderland. I don't know whether Taiwo Awoniyi is going to get his break this season under Ange Koglu. But we'll see what happens, guys. Thanks for watching. Leave your thoughts in the comments and stay tuned for more videos.